What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Tyler's Corner. And as you can probably tell, Andrew is not here. Um, Andrew's schedule has recently just kind of changed drastically, and his availability is not exactly what it was. So it just like we're having to work around it. Um, he couldn't be here last week because he was just getting his, just starting. Now this week he's rather busy, and I just didn't want to do it on Friday night. Is Friday afternoon. So this one's not necessarily a big game. It's a big game in not in terms of opponent, but in terms of what it means to the team and what's going to go happen going forward. I know I said last week I felt like Miami had kind of connected all the dots. I mean, not that I'm not sure they did. I'm just not sure that that's going to continue if we don't win this game. So, and it's also senior day. This is a big deal. These are seniors that have changed the landscape of the University of Miami since their arrival. And I don't know if I would pick any other seniors that really contribute as much as these seniors did into what it means to be Miami and the changing of the culture and what it was as to what it is now. Even if there's a little glimpse of it, we're definitely trending in the right direction, no way. So, Miami seniors include Shaq Quarterman, Michael Pickney, Romeo Finley, Pat Bethel, Rob Knowles, KJ Osborne, Jamie Murphy, Scott Patchen, and Trayvon Hill. There's a couple other in there that I don't even remember getting much playing time, but they're integral parts into the team. I've only just realized that I kind of just stopped at those, but Trayvon Hill and KJ Osborne are not out and out seniors, but I mean they are in terms of they will not be playing next season, but they are not Miami's seniors. They are, they are engrafted into the works of the team, but they are very much important into what has happened this season. Trayvon Hill, especially with the emergence of Greg Rousseau, has been lethal in our 3 down lineman sets or 4 down lineman sets even. We could put Greg Rousseau in the middle, and we have Garvid, Trayvon Hill, and Greg Rousseau with the defensive tackle for strength, all playing at the same time, rushing the quarterback, and that paid dividends for us against Florida State with our 9 sacks. So, I mean, Shaq Quarterman, Michael Pickney, I mean, I don't think there's anything I can really say about those two that nobody really knows. It's not like, nobody knows about Michael Pickney or Shaq Quarterman. Those guys are absolutely insane. They meant so much to this university. They've played since their first day on campus. They have been starting, and they sacrificed a lot in order to come back and play for the team and, try to revive what was. And, that we didn't quite have it when they were here. The first 3 seasons, we were almost there, but it's was the culture there? And they're no. We feel like we know what the culture is. We could be the leaders that sets the linebacker, which is a very important position on our defense, to say that we know exactly what we want our defensive room to look like, especially the linebacker position, in terms of what you're supposed to do on a day-to-day basis, why this all works, why you're drinking this shake this day for nutrition, why you're supposed to eat this type of stuff. It's not that they're there to be the mediator between the players and the coaches, which I think they kind of are now, but it's these are the guys that are to show you the way on defense. These are the guys that have done it. They've been doing it. They bought in when they were 18, and they're saying, if I bought into this at 18 and look at me now, buy in now. I bought in my first day on campus. It's just these guys mean a lot to the team, and you could tell they're really the centerfolds of that defense, whether or not they are physically within a play or kind of mentally within the team. But Romeo Finley has been I say a recent emergence, but it's kind of been I think they switched to the striker in 17 when they went on that big run of 10-0. So it's not like he's been, hammered in as the starter always. This is a guy who means a lot to this team this season for sure. If we don't have Romeo Finley, we play 3 corners, regardless of the depth of what's actually going on at that position, but I don't know how many games we win with how many option style, spread option style offenses are in this Coastal Division. I mean, we played the likes of Georgia Tech, who we lost to, but that was not the defense's fault. They gave up 7 points themselves. The tackles were obviously missed tackles were there, but like Virginia was a major one in terms of what they wanted to do with the football and how they wanted to spread the ball around and use Bryce Perkins, and we stopped them completely because of Romeo and Finley being able to be flexible, versatile, and play with speed and aggression, and be able to cover when he needs to. And he's been extremely valuable into bringing this defense from saying we're not just going to try to stop you from passing the ball. We're going to make sure we do both well enough to make our whole team excel. Because if you bring on 3 corners, maybe we lose to Virginia. I mean, Virginia beats teams playing just the same way they did against us. I mean, they use Bryce Perkins. They get him in easy third down positions, convert with his legs, and it's, he doesn't have to pass because it's so easy to run. And then we bring in Romeo Finley. He's so easy. It's so easy for him just to run and attack the ball carrier every time. He seems to know exactly where the ball's going. That I think he has saved us in many games this season. And he's probably one of my MVPs on defense if it wasn't for the names of Greg Rousseau and Shaq Quarterman as of late since the Georgia Tech game. So Pat Bethel is kind of a recent emergence. Jimmy Murphy, everybody knows that story. Scott Patchen's been a guy that I feel like he's been here for his doctorate degree at this point, doctorate degree. Then you got Rob Knowles, who I think is an excellent story because I absolutely despise Rob Knowles when he was playing. I think it was 17 year when we didn't have because we didn't have Gervin, or we had Amari Carter, who was a freshman, but we did not have a backup safety, free safety, or center fielder basically. And he would come in, and I was just like, dude, get this bum out of here. And now he comes in, and he played a crucial part in a lot of these games when Amari Carter's been knocked out of the game, or we get a targeting call, or Bubba Bolin got hurt. It's like he's having to play a crucial part, and his player development is insane. I mean, for Manny Diaz to really go on and on, I've heard it 3 separate times this week, go on and on and on about Rob Knowles and the player that he is. He said, I'm not just saying this because it's senior week, that these is the last home game, but this is the guy that he's going to walk out of here with a degree. He's going to walk out of here with a work ethic to know that when he puts his mind to it, he can really make himself into something and made himself into a better player. And, that's really nice to see. It's just from the guy I remember specifically playing a couple years ago to what he is now, it's completely different. And he is miles better. And that's definitely for sure. I think that's about it for the seniors. I mean, they're all so crucial to this team now. I mean, especially KJ, who, after we've lost Ryan Hightower, our receiving core looks kind of skinny, in the terms of depth. We need that sure-handed guy that's going to run excellent routes, is going to, can bust the play open if he needs to, but he's going to catch you the ball. He's going to make that catch for you every time, and we need that. And Trayvon Hill has just been he's been a beast all season, but I think kind of recently with Greg Rousseau being a monster, it really just shows just how good Trayvon Hill is when he can put all 3 of those dudes on the field at the same time. And Jimmy Murphy, everybody knows that. I mean, I feel like he should play a little bit more. But Pat Bethel's done really good this season in the middle since, we no longer have Gerald Willis or R.J. McIntosh, Kendrick Norton. He's been a solid rock in there, and especially with if you compare Nesta, whose Florida State game apparently was the highest graded D-tackle game for anybody in the country, if I'm not mistaken. At defensive tackle, he had the highest grade for one game that anybody else has this whole season. If I'm not mistaken, he definitely had one of his best games of his career at Florida State. I definitely know that. So to get more into the meat of the game, I mean, this one needs to be a proper send-off to the team. Just first and foremost, I'll get into the details of it after, but this needs to be a proper send-off to our guys when we tell them, we know what you did for Miami. You sacrificed going to the good schools, or whatever to reset our culture back to a even field. We're not playing complete opposite of what we should be. We're now kind of in the middle. Just reset it and make it with something you can work with. And I mean, you can't ask for any more from any of these guys. Shaq was a really good linebacker coming out of high school. Pickney was only a 3-star, but still, like, those guys are in Jacksonville. They are in Florida territory, and they come down to Miami to reset Miami as a whole in what we were doing. So, I mean, I wish I could be at that game Saturday and just personally give them the proper send-off into what I think they really, really deserve as players, and what the fans really should mean to them. So, in terms of the Louisville, I mean, as we get into the meat of the game, Louisville's schedule has honestly been down all season. I mean, they've not been great. They've not been prolific in every game. They're beating teams they shouldn't, and then they're losing to teams they shouldn't. I mean, they lost to Florida State pretty bad, like 35-10. Also, the very beginning of the season, their quarterback goes down for the season, and they have to bring in Mikael Cunningham, who is probably going to be their starter, but he was in and out of some games. They're having to play a true freshman quarterback. On top of that, Louisville is probably one of the most plagued teams in all of college football with the transfer portal. They had a ton of guys leave, and their defense is not good at all, but their offense shows some signs of innovativeness and be able to be completely different than other people. So it could be a good game. I mean, their schematic approach though often depends on what QB they got. Like I said, I mean, Mikael Cunningham has been their starter since their original QB got hurt, but he's been in and out of games, so they're having to switch up their scheme because their true freshman is like a pro-style quarterback, and they're running kind of a real deal spread like LSU, and so I guess we'll just see what happens there. So, I mean, Mikael Cunningham is definitely the QB they prefer. So, their team is good. They've got good spots, but I mean, what good people they do got is from the Lamar Jackson era, where they were, on the rise in the sense where, they were, I guess, just on the rise. Like Lamar Jackson had them in a good spot, left them on good terms with the players they had gotten, and it's just their coaches haven't been able to do anything with it. And their new coach, who, as of today, is rumored to maybe go to FSU, which is insane, and so is Deion Sanders for some reason. They're all rumored to go to FSU, and it's like Louisville is in a good spot right now. They're trending up in the sense of what they're doing within the confines of their practice field, what the culture is and what they want the team to be. So it could be a close game, but I mean, I actually like their coach. I mean, like I said, he's new and innovative on offense, and offense is definitely going to be Louisville's. I almost keep wanting to say LSU, but offense is definitely going to be Louisville's bright spot. Like, they're not going to destroy you on defense whatsoever. So, we'll most likely see Mikael Cunningham in this game unless he's hurt. With him in the game, their offense is very option-oriented. It's going to be just like Georgia Tech. They're going to – because he can't – I would say not like Georgia Tech. I would say like Virginia. Virginia with speed. Like, Virginia, you know how Virginia, when you watch that game, is seeing like a lot of underneath stuff and letting their receivers they're doubling up on the receivers on one side, bringing a guy in motion and throwing a screen, and the receivers were blocking, and it's like if their receiver had some speed, they could have busted him and then plays wide open. And Louisville's got that kind of speed. I just don't know if the skill transcends very far, because Mikael Cunningham is an excellent quarterback. He is dynamic, about as dynamic as they really come, without being a true and out passer. He is athletic. He knows exactly what he's supposed to do when running the football, just passing. It's just there's a lot to be desired. He's not great. He has his moments. He's just like Bryce Perkins, but he's a lot more athletic. Bryce Perkins is a good runner. He's not very athletic. He's not very fast. Mikael Cunningham is going to be fast. He's going to remind you of Lamar Jackson, except for the fact he can't really throw the ball. So their offense can be predictable in the sense that you know they're going to run the option, they're going to run the football. And it's not just because of Mikael Cunningham. They're going to bring receivers in motion, run some, not I say old school, but it's definitely old school now. Old school Oregon offense where it is triple option with a receiver. You are bringing that receiver in motion. You got a fake to the running back. Your QB can keep it or he can pitch it. It's an old school Oregon, 2010 to 2013 national championship bids Oregon offense with a QB that can run. And they're a running back that can run and receivers that are lightning quick. Like, this is not an offense that you should just blow off. Like, they have speed and more speed and some other speed to go along with it. And they are going to run the football until the wheels fall off. They are not going to force themselves to pass. They are going to play. It is just like Virginia, just with speed. And they're going to absolutely need to run the football effectively, or I can see this one getting very ugly. And so when you combine the fact that they run the football good with the fact that Miami is 12th in the country in rush defense, that could be pretty scary for a Louisville fan. I mean, Miami only allows 2.77 yards per rush. Coming off a game against FSU where you have 16 tackles for loss. I mean, and on top of the fact that Miami has played this style of offense many times this season alone, but has played a option-oriented offense every season as long as I can remember, since they joined the ACC. Georgia Tech has ran that wing T triple option system. It's not the same, but it is assignment based on defense. It's not here to make plays on defense. You are here to play your assignment and play your assignment until the end of the whistle. That is what it means. It means you do not try to gang tackle the QB. You try to make sure that linebacker gets the QB, and I'm rapping to get the guy on the outside that he's his pitch option. That is your assignments on defense, and Miami knows how to do it with style. They've done it against Georgia Tech, and they've beaten Georgia Tech in recent history doing exactly that. When it comes to Louisville passing the ball, they're not very good because they only rank, they're ranked 110 in the country in sacks allowed. And if you see that number, you're like, wow. And it's like, as much as they run the football, they still allow as many sacks basically as Miami does. Miami now is ahead of FSU, just in case you were wondering, in sacks allowed. But Miami is still 124 out of 130, and Louisville is 110 out of 130. So, I don't think you can say that their offensive line is good at all. They're good at run blocking. They're good at running the football down your throat. But the moment that falls out, you got to now block guys like Trayvon Hill, Greg Rousseau, Nesta Silvera, and Jonathan Garvin. Not to mention the blitz options of Shaq Quarterman and Michael Pickney. Our defense is very aggressive on third downs. And I was very critical of it in the beginning of the season, but now I think it's paying off in the sense that they're not scoring. So, they're not good at passing the football. They really don't want to be. So, and Miami's even played, really good against the run in recent history. Going back to 2017, Virginia Tech was a very good running football team in 2017. Miami obliterated them. Notre Dame ran this similar style of offense, and Miami just destroyed them, wiped them off the face of the earth with that offense. So I will say, though, Miami hasn't seen a QB with this type of speed in a long time. You couldn't put a running back at quarterback and expect him to be faster. This is Lamar Jackson type speed with the slipperiness of Lamar Jackson. I don't know if you could play two-hand touch with Lamar Jackson in your backyard. He is that dynamic and quick. Mikael Cunningham almost looks like that, but it's like when he's faced defenses that know what they're doing on offense, or he faced defenses that knows what the offense is doing, then he kind of fizzles out. He still has some, ability to do something, but it's like he can't throw the football well enough to win them a game. I mean, he has he's thrown like 2 interceptions in those games when he's lost. I mean, they've done absolutely terrible with him in the game if he has to throw the football. I mean, the way Miami's defense has been performing this season, I see this one as being pretty cut and dry on that side of the football. The only outlier would be the QB, Mikael Cunningham. If he goes down and they have to bring in their backup, who doesn't seem that good, but their scheme seems to change completely when he comes in. So if that's the case, I would be really worried about that QB coming in, because it would be a completely different approach than what Miami has basically been scouting against all week this week. So I don't really know if I have much else to say on that one. I mean, especially when Miami's coming off a game like they did against LSU or against FSU on defense, like it looks really rough for Louisville and what they're going to try to do. So in terms of now getting to the other side of the football with Miami's offense versus Louisville's defense, Miami's offense should really have a easy time scoring. I mean, if they did what they just did to FSU's defense against Louisville's, this should be cut and dry. I mean, I've got a pretty high score prediction. This could be rough for Louisville's defense. I mean, they give up a lot of points in games that they've actually been close in, like Wake Forest. That game was high scoring, and they lost. I'm pretty sure. But it's like that game was blown out of proportion in terms of points. But their defense was doing them no favors. I mean, their defense right now is ranked 102nd, in the country on defense. Only to be behind 101st is FSU's defense. I don't necessarily think we're going to see as close of a point differential in this game as we did against FSU. FSU gave us it's as per course of a Miami Florida State game. These two teams will throw things that are completely different at you than what they were really doing all season. Florida State the whole season was playing their defenders back on their corners. Come to Miami, they're all creeping up, and that gave us both of our touchdowns. Then they also blitzed. They didn't really blitz all season, and Manny Diaz said this. They didn't blitz. They did not press the whole season, and then Miami FSU week, we're going to kick it into gear and actually try to win games. And I think it just their defense doesn't seem good at all. I mean, they're 106th in pass defense. That is rough, considering Miami is somewhere in the 60s, I think, now, in the low 50s maybe in pass offense. That could be rough for them. I mean, they're 106th on pass defense and 85th on rush defense. So they know how to defend the run a little bit better, but that is the bottom fourth, the bottom quarter basically, or bottom third of the entire country in terms of defense in general on rushing the ball. It's like, well, Miami can't run the football. They should be able to this game, because this defense is just flat out terrible. They do not do anything new. They're going to play just like Florida State is supposed to play all season, because Florida State does have a terrible defense. They're just trying to mix it up and maybe throw something at Miami they haven't seen. But they're going to play back. They're not going to blitz. They're going to force Jaron Williams to pick them apart, and I would venture to say Jaron Williams does just that. I don't see it being difficult whatsoever. So, it's okay, yeah. I mean, their average is sacking the QB. They allowed 35 points to FSU. We allowed 10. Defenses aren't comparable. It all hinges on if Miami's offense performs like they did last week. I don't really have much else to say on this phase of the football. That's what my notes said verbatim. I think it's true. I mean, they are not good on defense. We are coming out of a rut on offense, this is a big game for us. I mean, Miami needs to find their groove. What is the new normal for Miami? Was Florida State a fluke? Is this the new normal? Have we found the culture? Or whatever you want to say. Because if not, this could get rough again for Miami. Because I know I said last week, I think Miami found the culture and it doesn't matter what happens the rest of the season. But then you watch Manny's press conferences and they ask him that question, and he said, I don't know. And I was sitting there. I was like, what do you mean you don't know? You're the head coach. I think they did. How come you don't? And he said, it was Miami, Florida State. We had a good week of practice, yada, yada, everything he likes to say to kind of jump around the question. And then he just, comes back and hits at full force. He's like, this game is going to determine who we are as a team. He said, we are either the team that is a fluke at Florida State to get their head coach fired, it was an excellent 2 weeks for Miami. Or we're the team that beats Florida State, does all this stuff for no reason. And we're no different than Florida State at the end of the day. It's not like we're going to be in the same position, but it's in terms of the view from the rest of the world, we'll be viewed on par with, they beat Florida State. They beat the brakes off Florida State, made them fire their head coach. Now Louisville comes into our house on senior day with some of the most important seniors in history, really, and says, we're going to whip y'all's tail, and Miami doesn't know how to respond. That second phase is rough for Miami. That one is bad for Miami. I mean, I don't understand how Miami could be a part of that. Because like I said, I do really hold firm in the belief that I think this team has found that culture, or whatever you want to call it. I'm going to call it culture, that Miami has had. Not necessarily Manny Diaz's culture, but the culture of Miami. Because that's the beauty of college football, right? Every school has a culture. I said this last week with Florida State. Florida State has a culture as a team, and they have lost it. They have forgotten it. They are completely opposite of what they were. And they have the repercussions of it now. Alabama always has had the reputation of being hardworking, and the game is your reward. Your game on Saturday is the dessert. All week you're preparing, and preparing on top of preparing for your preparing, so then you get to play on Saturday, and that's your reward. That is Alabama's culture, whether it was Bear Bryant or it's Nick Saban now. Every team in the country has a culture and something that surrounds them as a whole. Miami is getting that back, where we're not necessarily being the bad boys, but we're going to be the hardest workers in the room. We need to make sure all of our days of practice line up from now on, because they said the first 4 of the season, in terms of games, were awful on Wednesday practices. And they said, basically, since Georgia Tech, our Wednesday practices have been spot on. They said Florida State week was obviously the better one, but Manny Diaz said this week is almost as good of a week that we've had all season, barring the Florida State week. He said we were focused. It seemed like we were knowing what we were doing, why we were doing it, how to do it correctly. He said it seems like the whole team understands that you need all 3 phases of the football to win a game. And it's true. I mean, hidden yardage, that's Manny's favorite stat in terms of how many extra yards did Miami have basically on field position than Florida State. Miami had an extra 216 yards of hidden yardage than Florida State did. So Miami basically, for Florida State to even get the same amount of yards as Miami, not even the score, but to get the same amount of yards they needed to double their total yardage in the game. Because they had less than 200 yards of total offense. And they needed 216 more to even be on par with what Miami did, who couldn't run the football that game, but threw excellently, which was only 270-ish, or 280 maybe. Or no, I think it was 310. It was in the 310s. That part doesn't matter, but that is nuts. Miami, on average, that's special teams. You are starting in a good spot on field position every time. Lou Headley is putting them in their own 10, like every time. They're having to drive down the field on top of the fact that they have to countermeasure for the fact that they can't get a safety. They can't go backwards. They can't afford to drop back too far and keep their quarterback in the end zone. Like, this is a rough. Like, that's why Miami's defense is so good, is because their special team is good. Well, why is their special teams good? Because Miami's offense is finally clicking and keeping them on their toes and what they want to do. They could drive the ball down the field just enough where they could flip the field position on punts. Like, and it's like, well, that seems like common knowledge, but when you think about so often that you were just focused on your side of the football, you honestly, coming from personal experience, you don't really care what happens on the other side of the football unless you win or lose. You don't care about how good Lou Headley's punting if you're on defense. Like, unless he pins you inside the 20, then that's a great punt. But other than that, I mean, you don't really care. On offense, you don't really care where you start as long as you're not starting, at this. It's like, it's such a selfish mindset that's almost engrafted because you only work solely with your side of the football. Always. I mean, what's the point of teaching Lou Headley QB mechanics? Like, do you understand what I'm saying? So, it seems like, Manny said, it seems like all Miami players seem to have gotten what it takes to win a football game. And I think they win this game. I'm going to give my score later. But Miami needs their groove. I don't know if that necessarily transcends into wins later on, but this game is a definite. You need to solidify this thing. Like, it's like a melting ice cube. You need to put it back in the freezer, let it harden more before you can use it. And I think I'm with Manny at this point. He says he thinks this game will cement who Miami is for the rest of for seasons to come, and I think it will. If Miami is not on board as a team and as, systematically, schematically, everything, this could be a rough couple seasons for Manny Diaz. And this game is obviously going to determine it. Like, because you found it in Florida State. Do you have it, or have you just found it and dropped it again? Because Jaren's proved everybody wrong. Like, that's not an issue anymore. Arm strength is not an issue. We actually know how to play well on all three phases of the football. You got to do it 2 weeks in a row. It's senior day. You got to do it 2 weeks in a row. You got to impress your recruits, too. Saying, we did it for, you could even exaggerate. Since Georgia Tech, we lost Georgia Tech, we started our season over. Since Georgia Tech, we went undefeated for the rest of the season. It's not just, we won those games, but we know who we are as an identity and as a team. Because that portion plagued Miami for the first half of the season. We didn't know who we were. We didn't know what took to win. Because last year we were 7-6, we were 10-0 in 17, and half these kids weren't even here in 17. Half these kids we got because of our 10-0 record in 17. So transition to 18, we went 7-6, and they don't know how to win games. They don't know how to win those close ones. And they've shown progressively, whether it was Pitt, whether it was Virginia, or at Florida State, showing that you could play a complete game all 4 quarters. Like, there are no more concerns about this team other than scheme for me. But scheme performs kind of well when your QB throws off everybody about his arm strength or his injury or who he is as a person, because he came out against Florida State and did exactly what he needed to do and throw the football deep and utilize our speed on offense. So, I mean, I know I'm not a player, but I think at this point I'm buying into Manny. In terms of stock market terms, I'm buying full stock. I've got to think that he knows exactly what he's doing with the way we did against Florida State. Not in terms of points, but the way we conducted ourselves in the win. Like, there's pushing fight always, but we were calm. We were focused, laser focused. We knew exactly what we needed to do every play, it felt like. And scoreboard shows it. I mean, You just need this win to add affirmation to the program in terms of what you want to do and who you want to be. I mean, it doesn't really matter who Louisville is. I almost didn't even write down any stats for them. Their offense, we've seen it before. Their defense is lackluster and flat out terrible. This should be an easy win. Like, I don't know how else to emphasize other than to say exactly what I said again. I mean, we have seen this offense before. We have played better defenses than this all season. This is probably one of the worst defenses we play all season without counting Bethune-Cookman. Like, we faced the team that was number 1 in the country in sacks and only gave up 2. Like, our offensive line is getting there. Our QB is finally getting here. We're able to throw all the plays that we want to throw. Our defense is clicking. Our kicker's making kicks. Our punter's punting the ball inside the 5, much less the 20. You need this win as a program. I think after that, I would call almost whatever. I mean, you got to beat FIU, I would say. Maybe it's not as important as Louisville, but FIU just for locale's sake because they're in Fort Lauderdale. At Duke, I mean, if you still want a shot at the Coastal, you got to beat Duke. So that part is really, do you really think you have a chance at winning the Coastal, or are you just going to lay flat-footed and lose to Duke? So this one was relatively short. In terms of score, my prediction, I had 31-10. I'm trying to decide whether or not I want to stick with my 31-10 because I think it may be more. I'll stick 31-10. Miami scored 27 last week, basically giving them an extra touchdown minus 1 field goal. I think we could score more touchdowns than what we did against FSU, for sure. Because, I mean, our defense is basically on par, but Florida State's defense was vastly different in terms of scheme throughout the season and what they were doing in that game. So, we should be able to take advantage of their defense all day. Jaron Williams is good at throwing the West Coast system of underneath routes. And, you know, he even showed some excellent throws on deep corner routes or down the middle post routes. Like, he's coming into his own. This should be relatively easy on offense. The key is the defense. Are they really, really going to hone in and define themselves as one of the best rush defenses in the country? Or does Mikael Cunningham get the better of us? So I'll stick with 31-10. I don't want to go outlandish because I really want to say 38-10. But I'll stick with my 31-10, and we'll see how close that is. Because, I mean, he's dynamic. He's fast, but he can't really throw. So we'll see what happens. But sorry if you really like Andrew in terms of what he has to say, but he couldn't make it this episode, as I've said. Follow me on Twitter at Tyler's Corner. Keep you updated. I mean, I don't really talk a lot about Miami. I retweet things that I see. I leave to what I have to say about Miami to this so I can keep it in bulk form, and I don't have to keep, adding things on Twitter. If I talk about other things, I could talk about, like, Lamar Jackson, talk about Mariota on there, in terms of what I think they offer as players. So, I don't talk about just Miami on my Twitter, by the way. So, give that a look. Follow me on Twitter. Subscribe, like if you liked the video. This one was relatively short, but this is more of a cultural win than it is anything. So, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like. And this has been Tyler with Tyler's Corner. And as always, go Canes.